We'll start off with some introductions before we dive on into the webinar. So my name is Duncan Bayerjean. I am the Director of Marketing here at Numecent.
Yeah, and everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Rory Monahan, and I'm Senior Technologist at Numecent.
Right on. Well, thanks, Rory. And so I guess for those who are unfamiliar with Numecent, we were founded in 2012 with the mission of simplifying the mobilization and management of Windows applications. So across modern desktop and multi-cloud environments, which is, of course, what brings us here today. So really, this upcoming Windows 11 end of support aligns really perfectly with our mission. Ultimately, our technology portfolio is designed to do just that, containerize your applications and ensure they can run on any modern Windows OS. So this technology portfolio, which you're going to see in action today, we're really proud of the fact that it's built on our own IP. So it's backed by 64 patents. And so we actually were awarded our 63rd and 64th patents back in December. And these, again, are just ensuring that all your apps can run on any modern physical or virtual Windows desktop environment. And these technologies are being utilized every day by the largest enterprises in the world to seamlessly package and deploy tens of thousands of apps to millions of users on a daily basis. And we're not talking small scale implementations either. During a move from Windows 7 to Windows 10, one of the largest banks in the world actually leveraged our technology to achieve a single golden image for more than 100,000 VDI users. So again, we're really talking scale as well. And part of what today is going to be about is how you can leverage those technologies to do the same as you move towards Windows 11 and beyond. Of course, don't just take our word for it. Over the years, we've been recognized by the likes of Gartner, Forrester, and IDC for the impact that our virtualization and cloud native container management platforms are having on enterprise IT. And so again, as far as showing everyone here how these technologies can seamlessly get you to Windows 11 and beyond, I'm going to hand things back on over to Rory here.
Thanks very much, Duncan. And yeah, before I get into the slides and also the demo part of today's session, let me just do a quick run through of the agenda. So at the very beginning, going to talk about Windows 10 end of support, since that is looming large and it may be a catalyst for why some of you chose to attend today. Also going to be talking not just about migrating to Windows 11, but using this Windows 11 migration as an opportunity to truly modernize your desktops and thinking bigger than just the operating system. I'll also discuss Windows 10 extended security updates, as it's quite topical, because recently Microsoft announced the pricing for those Windows 10 ESUs and some discounts that are available to customers. I'll also talk generally around Windows 11 requirements, possible migration paths that customers may choose, and just kind of throughout today's session, I'll jump into some of my own insights from working on multiple different Windows desktop OS migrations in the past, discussing common desktop and application migration challenges. And a recurring theme throughout today's session, as the title slide would suggest, is how you can ensure this is your last true application migration. And of course, we'll also be doing a live Cloudpaging demonstration, which is our product that is the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops. I already said it at the beginning of today's session, but if you do have a question that you'd like to ask during the session, feel free to drop it into the Q&A in the Zoom meeting. But yeah, to begin, as I said, the Windows 10 end of support is looming large. End of support arrives on October 14th, 2025, which makes now the time to start your migration if you haven't already. According to the late and great Chris Jackson, who was also known as the app compat guy in Microsoft, upgrade projects to adopt a new Windows OS version typically takes about 12 to 18 months or more. Chris was a genius when it came to application compatibility. His work on tooling and materials were an incredible help to me and organizations when migrating from Windows XP to Windows 7, and indeed from Windows 7 to Windows 10. The reason tooling and materials were required to assist customers in those migrations is because applications present the toughest challenge when migrating to a new Windows desktop OS. At a very high level, if you look at some of the ingredients that make up your migration, it includes having suitable hardware, which can present a challenge to some organizations if they do not have a regular hardware refresh cycle. We will discuss some Windows 11 requirements a little bit later on, but there are some hardware requirements for Windows 11, which could mean hardware refreshes may be required for at least some of your users. So you'll want to identify those as soon as possible so it can be accounted for in your budget. But from a technical implementation perspective and just from an overhead perspective for your IT operations, having the hardware in place should not be a major effort. Onboarding like drivers for new models of laptops or workstations and the work that goes into onboarding new hardware is something that should be pretty familiar and consistent for desktop administrators. Similarly, desktop image creation has become consistent over the years. You're likely to continue using the same tooling that you've used in the past when it comes to creating your Windows 11 desktop image. And once you have your image, it's pretty much a case of set it and forget it, not a huge uplift required for your IT team. User data and settings are vitally important for ensuring a good digital employee experience when migrating to Windows 11. You don't want to give users a Windows 11 desktop and the first thing they notice is, hey, I've gone into my browser and I've lost all my favorites, or these applications that I use every day to be productive, all of my settings have been blown away, or perhaps their user profile was completely wiped. That's not a good first impression for your Windows 11 desktop. But luckily, there's consistency in where user data is stored, and that has been the case for some time. Plus, organizations have been using profile management solutions and products like OneDrive for some time now. So much of the work from previous years in standardizing and managing user profiles should mean that there's going to be consistency and less effort required for migrating that user data and settings portion. Now, where there's less consistency and more work and difficulty is the applications. It seems no two Windows applications are the same. Vendors do not follow consistency or best practices when packaging their applications or in how their applications function and interact with different Windows OS components. While Microsoft has done a really good job of reducing the number of application compatibility challenges when migrating to a new desktop OS, you will still face some challenges with compatibility and just some general obstacles due to your current tooling and methods for managing your Windows applications. And now is the time to modernize how you manage your Windows applications. Don't just base into Windows 11 with an attitude of, well, end of support for Windows 10 is looming. I'm just going to focus on getting all my desktops to Windows 11 before that end of support. I'm just going to try and do an in-place upgrade and hope for the best. Now is the time to enact change and modernization. If you deploy Windows 11 and then maybe 2 years after the rollout decide, okay, well, now I'd like to modernize some aspect of desktop security or maybe your application management, it's going to be more difficult when it's in a steady state. For your Windows 11 migration, you must retouch your applications. And during your migration, you must touch every existing desktop. So now is the time to implement change to reduce business disruption in the future. And whilst the applications are the greatest obstacle, they also present the greatest opportunity for modernizing IT operations. If you take the time to modernize how you manage your Windows applications, you will reap the benefits going forward. A major factor for planning your Windows 11 migration will be limiting disruption to the business while doing your migration. Perhaps you need to account for not disrupting finance when they're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. Or if you're in a healthcare setting, perhaps you don't want to disrupt certain departments during the winter months when the patient load is at its highest. But it's great to have that plan, but the old adage comes to mind of, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. The reality is, with your current package formats and deployment solutions, you are going to encounter some problems with some applications that could mess up your plans, just derail everything, and end up disrupting the business. You may say, okay, well, I'm going to migrate finance earlier in the year, but if you run into application issues or other issues when trying to migrate them, that could mean a later migration that could end up disrupting the business. And it shouldn't be that way. There are solutions to make application deployments quick, reliable, and dynamic. And while today we're talking about migrating to a new OS in Windows 11, you may decide in the future to migrate to possibly a new desktop as a service offering, or possibly you have some users in VDI today, and in a few years' time you decide, oh, okay, well, I want to move them off VDI and back to physical endpoints. Well, not only can reliable dynamic application delivery help you with business continuity as you're planning a migration to a new OS and avoid disruption, it can also provide flexibility and portability to quickly enable you to move to new platforms and desktop types as required. And I mean, we've already talked a little bit about avoiding that disruption while planning your migration. Well, dynamic application delivery could also provide business continuity in the event of a disaster recovery scenario too. So if you need to possibly shift quickly to cloud-hosted desktops due to your corporate network being taken offline while investigating a security incident, dynamic application delivery and integration with a modern cloud-hosted identity provider could be key to keeping your organization up and running whilst the corporate network is offline. And now, as I said, is a time to truly modernize your application management and move away from what Microsoft PM John Vinsel once described as XP lifecycle era technologies like MSIs and setup.exes that are fraught with problems like application conflicts, corruption, unclean uninstalls, and more. These formats are also restricted when it comes to migrating across platforms and deployment solutions. So when migrating your applications to Windows 11, don't just think about this migration, think about your next migration too. And with current tooling, migrating platforms requires too much time and effort, but it doesn't have to. By moving to dynamically delivering your applications and your application updates, you also ensure quick deployments and peace of mind when patching against vulnerabilities. And if you implement something like application containers, you can make patching much more low risk as well. And that could be important as organizations are currently struggling to patch applications as quickly as possible due to how frequent vulnerabilities are being exploited by cyber gangs and just how quickly they're exploiting them after public disclosure too. Modernization can also help tackle future migrations by moving to a proactive automated solution for some of your application lifecycle management too. So for example, you may have some applications deployed to machines in your environment that are no longer in use at all. They're just like deployed out there, targeted with a traditional deployment tool and installed across several machines, and they're not being used. Why are they there? Likely because you don't have ongoing oversight of the application usage in your environment. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. When modernizing your application management, you should also look at applying an extra crucial layer of security in your environment by standardizing on a per-user deployment strategy, which would ensure only entitled users can see applications, files, registries, and components, thus reducing the surface layer for attack on company devices. And if you move to something like an application container, you'd be able to also ensure extra security by encrypting application payloads and by leveraging automated application updates for the quickest patching possible that still gives you control and oversight for your IT for those application updates. And development teams and infrastructure teams have been enjoying and realizing the benefits that containers bring for over a decade. Now is the time for desktop teams to leverage containers too. And here's the rub. I think I did a pretty good job of not mentioning any of our products when discussing that, but Numecent Cloudpaging application containers and our cloud native container management platform, Cloudpager, can provide all of what I just talked about, as well as providing the flexibility that you require during your Windows 11 migration and every migration project going forward. And we have customers who have implemented our Cloudpaging application containers as part of their Windows XP to Windows 7 migration projects many years ago, who were then able to effectively migrate to Windows 10 quickly as the applications were just dynamically delivered to their new desktops post-upgrade. Mark West, who's Senior End User Computing Solutions Engineer at Kingston University, shared what their strategy for Windows 11 migration is. And having relied on Cloudpaging application containers for previous migrations, their strategy is to simply just deploy Windows 11 safely in the knowledge that the applications can continue to be used as they are today on Windows 10, making their Windows 11 migration effectively an overnight experience. But before getting into today's demo, I want to discuss just generally some Windows 11 requirements and talk a little bit more about what your migration journey may be. Okay, so kind of looking at a typical migration plan, you need to gather data on the applications in your environment. Again, you may be deploying applications with a traditional deployment tool, but in many organizations, support staff such as field technicians may have hand-installed applications over the years. To ensure all applications are available and working when Windows 11 has been deployed, you must first know about them, so gathering the data is essential. When you have your list of applications gathered, you need to rationalize that list ideally. Determine what applications are the most widely used, and then tackle those applications for testing and remediation and packaging first. And once you have those most widely used applications ready, you have some applications already processed and ready for all departments. And when you rationalize applications, you can also identify applications that may be installed on machines in your organization, but not actually in use, like I mentioned a little bit earlier. And that can help you to eliminate those applications, reduce the overhead, and also reduce your risk exposure by having these applications and their files and registry just sitting on machines when not in use and possibly being prone to a vulnerability that you're unaware of. You can also use rationalization to identify duplication in your environment, such as perhaps maybe you have 5 PDF writer products. If you consolidate from 5 down to a single product, it may be possible to convert to a volume license and make some savings there on that licensing cost too. And once you know what applications are for sure required and need to be moved forward to Windows 11, you need to then assess the compatibility of those applications. You may check to see if the vendor has certified the applications to work on Windows 11 and they support it on Windows 11. But of course, you'll also want to actually test the applications too. While an application may be certified to work, if you made changes to the package when you were deploying the application, it may still break on Windows 11 just because of what you did to maybe get it to work in your environment. And as issues are identified, you need to begin remediation work as well. So while remediation efforts are ongoing, I would suggest that you proceed with other work in parallel, like finalizing your Windows 11 desktop image and doing some modernization work. And it is possible that you may not be able to fully finalize your desktop image if you do run into an application issue and a prerequisite or something that's required to get the application to work on Windows 11 is required in the desktop image itself. So there may be this kind of cyclical phase there and possibly some delays caused by that. All the while, you should work on modernization of your desktops. And this could be in the form of adopting a modern identity provider like Microsoft's Entra ID, moving to using password rotation for your service accounts of products just to increase security. And of course, modernizing your application management with containers and Cloudpager. And then you'll be on to a successful and complete migration. So as mentioned in the agenda, Windows 10 extended security updates, Microsoft just revealed the actual pricing for that. Now, we help you to ensure you don't need the issues, like as I covered on the Kingston University case there. They can just make it an overnight experience. And when you can do that, you can avoid paying for extended security updates at all. However, if your enterprise does require ESUs for this migration, we can help you get the lowest cost option possible, thanks to the portability that our application containers provides. The base price for ESUs that was announced is set at $61 per device in year one, with the price doubling each year for the 3-year duration of the program. So it's similar to what was offered for Windows 7 ESUs. Discounts are available for using a cloud management product by Microsoft, such as Intune or AutoPatch, and free ESUs will be offered to those who commit to a 1-year subscription for Windows 365 cloud PCs on their client devices. And that last bit could actually make Windows 365 an attractive prospect during customers' Windows 11 migrations. While the price of a Windows 365 cloud PC should certainly be cost effective, it does mean your IT team will need to support more desktops. So there is that increased overhead. But the good news is Cloudpager can be used to dynamically deliver applications to any Windows desktop. So it's perfect for your Windows 365 cloud PCs that are essentially virtual PCs just hosted in the cloud. So it's a one-to-one dedicated PC per assigned employee, meaning if an employee uses a cloud PC today, it's the same PC they'll be logging in tomorrow, and it's going to be persistent. So it's kind of like managing your physical endpoints, but managing them up in the cloud. So there's a little bit of consistency there. But many organizations also leverage Azure Virtual Desktop for multi-session operating systems like the Windows 10 and Windows 11 Enterprise Virtual Desktops, and also for just having that kind of non-persistence and flexibility that you may get with a DaaS offering or VDI. And they may resort to installing applications directly into their image for Azure Virtual Desktop, whilst deploying applications to their physical endpoints using a traditional deployment tool. And neither option may be ideal. Using traditional tooling may have some slowness. Putting applications into the virtual desktop image could lead to application conflicts and image sprawl by creating various more images in order to support all your applications and all your users and all your desktops. But by getting to Cloudpager, you can consolidate to a single golden image because the applications are being dynamically delivered outside of the image, and you can use quick, reliable, dynamic application deployments to all applications across your physical endpoints and your virtual desktops as well, all from a single pane of glass in the cloud. So kind of going back to some general Windows 11 requirements, you need to account for these requirements. And as I alluded to earlier, there are some hardware requirements that may be a sticking point for some. First is a requirement for TPM, which stands for Trusted Platform Module. Now, the good news is this requirement can be met with a virtual TPM, and most processors on the market over the last few years support a vTPM. But if you happen to have some older laptops or workstations, it is possible the TPM requirement may pose a problem. So you'll want to identify those outliers as soon as possible because you may need to pay to replace that hardware. UEFI and Secure Boot are also a requirement for Windows 11, but in my experience, most organizations made the move away from BIOS about a decade ago or so. So that should not be a blocker for most. Secure Boot is also something that hardware vendors have been supporting for several years, so hopefully that should not be a blocker for you. The minimum desktop specification required, such as memory, CPU, and disk space, is similar to Windows 10, so that should also not present a problem. However, I will add that applications on Windows have become more resource intensive over the last few years. And I'm sure you've probably noticed that even on your Windows 10 desktops as well. So I'd recommend standardizing on decent processors and at least 8 gigs of memory for a good digital employee experience going forward. So you don't necessarily have to have that in place in order to go to Windows 11, but as you're refreshing your hardware in the future, consider beefing up the desktops and your laptops, obviously. Now, one area of concern is the fact that this is the first desktop OS edition that standardizes on 64-bit. There will be no 32-bit edition of Windows 11 available. This may result in a major problem for organizations that have specialized hardware and software. So if you have some specialized hardware peripherals, such as in labs and hospitals, and you've continued to lean on 32-bit Windows 10 to keep those specialized components functioning, unfortunately, if those products do not support 64-bit, there may be a requirement to upgrade the hardware and software, which could be costly and time-consuming. Now, this is a problem that unfortunately does not have an easy solution, and it's another reason why if you haven't already started your migration, now is the time to get started. So as stated in the title slide and what I said a little earlier during the agenda, we want to discuss how to make this your last true application migration, as the applications are the greatest challenge. So there's three things that you'll need to do. You need to containerize your applications. You need to deploy those applications from the cloud. And in doing so, you'll be able to deploy to any desktop, be it a physical desktop or virtual desktop, be it a desktop that's hosted in the cloud, running on your corporate network on premises today, or even a desktop that's roaming and perhaps connected to the internet at a remote worker's house. And by moving to containers for your application management, you eliminate the most common Windows application issues in enterprise, and you also gain application portability to allow for seamless management across any Windows desktop and platforms via the dynamic delivery. You embrace DevOps capabilities for the desktop. You can gain automation for part of your application lifecycle management, and containers can help to enhance security on the desktop by applying an additional layer of security around your applications. And of course, they can also help you in reducing operational costs by the flexibility that they provide. So, like as I mentioned a little bit earlier on a previous slide, now for virtual desktops, perhaps getting to a single golden image, or if you're doing one-to-one desktops today and paying a premium for that, you may be able to standardize on a multi-session OS going forward. And if you can containerize all of your applications, this would be the secret to dynamically delivering applications to any Windows desktop. No need to install applications into your virtual desktop image, whilst then delivering other applications to physical endpoints with traditional deployment tools. Now, on a previous slide, we looked a little bit at some of the different migration paths using Microsoft-specific platforms. But Cloudpager is platform agnostic. So if you're migrating from one DaaS offering to another, this is also perfect for just quickly getting those applications dynamically delivered to any other DaaS offering. No need to reverse engineer and rip things out of a desktop image or build a new desktop image over or anything like that. And no need for using automated builds or being overly reliant on automated builds that could be quite time consuming and need kind of pruning over the years. This is applications being deployed dynamically outside of the desktop images themselves, all through a single pane of glass in Cloudpager. And with Cloudpaging application containers, you can successfully containerize virtually any application. Our only recommendation is to not containerize Office and .NET Framework, just by way of the fact they're kind of tightly integrated to the OS. They may be required by applications that are used on the OS, and also just for updating purposes through Microsoft mechanisms. And unlike traditional virtualization solutions where customers hit a ceiling of about 60 to 80% of applications virtualized, all the applications you try to containerize will work. And unlike certain traditional formats or application layering solutions, our application containers can handle dynamic delivery of applications with different components, including things like maybe drivers, services, including complex component services, and plugins too. And the high rate of compatibility with Cloudpaging application containers is possible due to our unique disposition layers that make up our container format. We provide an isolated disposition layer where the application or components are fully virtualized and isolated on demand for the users. This could be useful on Windows 11 migration journeys if you encounter an application that maybe relies on an obsolete Windows 10 component that's no longer in the Windows 11 OS. It may be possible to put that component in your container and set it into the isolated disposition layer. That way it will be isolated from other applications and the local OS, so conflicts will be avoided and the legacy application will continue to function. Our containers can also be set at a per application basis to run in a specific Windows compatibility mode if required. And this isolated disposition layer can also be useful for legacy runtimes that you may still require but you do not wish to expose widely in the organization for security reasons. The integrated disposition layer is the perfect default layer, I would say. This ensures the application and components can function with other applications and the local operating system too, ensuring a high rate of compatibility. We also have our truly unique install disposition layers, which essentially delivers applications or application components as though they are locally installed, but still being delivered dynamically using the container. So no disruptive installation process or dialogues, but those components or those applications are effectively as though the application has been installed. Now, at the beginning, I showed a Windows 11 migration, like the typical plan. Before getting into the demonstration, which is coming up right now, I would just maybe remind you that there were several different phases, the possibility for disruption and delay from one phase to the next. Well, if you're using application containers, then you unlock seamless migrations for Windows 11, which is exactly what Mark West from Kingston University is planning for their migration. And you could achieve that too. But now let's get to the fun part, the demo. And actually, before I do that, I'm just going to turn off my video so it's not distracting, and also because I'm going to do the demo on a separate monitor here. Okay, so just go over here. Perfect. So for my demo, I have a Windows 11 desktop here. I do have the Cloudpaging player installed on this machine, which is our agent. And if I launch it just before I begin the demo, I just want to show you that currently there are no applications deployed to this Windows 11 machine at all. This is just a pretty vanilla standard Windows 11 image that has our agents installed on it. And I'm going to keep this open during today's demo, just because it's really useful so you can visualize that dynamic application delivery that I've talked about so much that is such a benefit when migrating across platform and OS. I also have a Windows 10 machine here that is also pretty vanilla, and it's got our agents installed, just because I want to be cognizant of the fact that you may still have some Windows 10 desktops that you also want to manage your applications across whilst making the move to Windows 11. You can see here, this is indeed Cloudpager, and I have several applications already published here. And if I sort by type, you can see there's not just our Cloudpaging application containers published, but I also have a MSIX container published, which is Microsoft's MSIX container format. So this is a container management platform. We do support other container formats like MSIX as well. But let's go through the process of maybe deploying net new packages or application containers to a user. I just want to show you what that process is like. So I could just go ahead and I can take these containers here. One is an STP and one is actually an AppV package. So if you do have some AppV applications currently, and maybe they've been hanging around for a while, and you don't currently have anyone who knows AppV anymore, this could be a solution for also migrating forward with your AppV applications. But you could see after I dragged and dropped these applications in, the upload process began. And there's also this option up at the top right-hand corner to add an application. This may be a familiar workflow to you in other solutions, and you may have gone like add application, put in an application name and all the information, and then upload the package and then do the next one. But by dragging and dropping the applications, you basically streamline the process. And while these applications are in flight, I can go ahead and update the information while that's processing. So it's basically no time wasted. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just modify the application name. I'm going to go ahead and change the version. I'll change the publisher information. And I'm also going to set a nice tile image. So it's not mandatory, but you may also want to use Cloudpager to track unit costs and application costs for applications. This could be a good place to store that. We do have multiple ways to present applications to your users. We have something called a work pod, which I will demo during today's session. This essentially dynamically delivers applications with shortcuts directly onto a user's desktop in their start menu or on the desktop, probably like they receive the applications today. But we also have a storefronts option, which provides applications published in a web storefront, kind of like for self-service of applications. You can assign applications, they go out to the web storefront and launch the applications as they see fit. And it's kind of like that application library method. You can categorize applications, and that way they'll be categorized in that storefront, and I'll show you that during the demo. And you can also set a description, which might be a description of the application itself, but possibly maybe something unique for your environment. So maybe like 7-zip is required by our admins to extract several compressed file types, something like that. Okay. And I'm actually typing better than I usually do when doing a demo, so that's a win. I'm going to now click Publish, and you'll see when you take certain administrative actions within Cloudpager, you get prompted for a comment, and this is for audit logging purposes. So if I just do like published 7-zip, that'll be my comment, and it'll be audited against my account that I did this action. Okay, so that application has now been published. Putty is still optimizing. Now, what this optimizing phase is, it's actually going to encapsulate this AppV package into our Cloudpaging application container format. And by doing this, you eliminate the need for things like AppV connection groups. You can leverage our unique policies features for those AppV applications that I'll show in the demo as well. And you can also get very granular usage reporting on these applications, plus the benefit of managing these applications from the cloud. And probably most importantly of all, if you do use AppV, the estimated end of life for AppV is 2026. By using our optimization, you can extend the life past 2026 for these applications. But I'm going to very quickly just go ahead and modify the information here. I'll be maybe a little less chatty while doing this one. And I will go ahead and give it a tile image. And description is not mandatory, so this time I won't even bother with the description. I'll publish with a comment, published putty. There we are. Okay, so we just published those applications. We did that kind of manually, but we do have some automation solutions that you could use to go ahead and maybe take your existing Win32 applications and your existing packages and automate the containerization of those into our Cloudpaging application container format. And we also have some resources that we can share for automating the containerization of other net new applications as well that you may want to bring forward. And of course, we're happy to do demos and show you the process for packaging applications into this container format so you can deploy them and manage them with Cloudpager. But let's proceed with showing how to actually deploy these applications dynamically to my desktops. So one method, as I said, is work pods, which will dynamically deliver the shortcuts directly to the desktop. I'm going to go ahead and just create a work pod here for the first time to show you how simple this is. I'll just name this one contractors, and I will give a description saying that this work pod is for applications required by contractors. Now, work pods allow you to group applications and assign them to security groups. So you may have like an IT work pod that contains the applications that the IT team requires. You may have a finance work pod, a HR work pod, and then have those applications matched to that role type or possibly to their user persona. I'm just going to go ahead and deploy certain applications. I'll pick some applications here. We'll do those applications. I'll save that. I'm going to assign it to a certain security group here. I've got a security group for contractors. That would be perfect. Now, what you may not realize here is when I click add and it's spinning, this is integrated with my Azure Entra ID tenant. So these are my Entra ID groups that are being presented, and I can assign based off of those groups. Similarly, I could assign it directly to individual users too. So that might be useful if you have like a UAT work pod just for testing of the applications. But I'm going to go ahead and publish these applications now. Again, I'm being prompted for a comment. This would be a good time to perhaps maybe align it with your ITSM of choice and a change request number, because this would be deploying to production users. So I'll just go ahead and maybe put in a random change request. We'll pretend that it's real. And I'll put in a descriptive comment. So, 7-zip 221, Adobe Acrobat DC, Firefox 126. And actually, real quick, I realized I put in the wrong application for part of my demo. So I'll fix that before I make that mistake. But yeah, I'll go ahead and publish that again. Okay, we'll do 7-zip 2201, Acrobat, Firefox 126, Inkscape 092.5, and PuTTY 078. So this might align with what is in your actual change request, so you can see that then in the future, and it'll be tracked against that change request number. Now I'm here on my Windows 11 desktop, and you saw that within the Cloudpaging player, you could visualize it, and you saw these applications being dynamically delivered. So this is kind of the beauty of if you're to use Cloudpager for your Windows 11 migration. You could update your desktops to Windows 11, and once our agents are available on those desktops in your image, the assigned applications are going to be dynamically delivered when they log into their desktop for that first time. Now, again, Cloudpaging Player, I've just opened this for the sake of a demo. You do not have to expose this to your users. It can run headerless mode, and the desktop shortcuts and start menu shortcuts may just like appear. But if you do have it open, you do also have the ability to just like right click and launch your application directly here. And you can see that this is running the container. But like I said, the applications are also available within the start menu for this application. So I just launched PuTTY, so maybe I'll launch our 7-zip application. Again, you can see it's running that container. I can run Adobe Acrobat DC. This is going to be the first launch experience, so it's probably going to load a few things, and then yeah, it's going to prompt me for my sign in for the first time. What you maybe don't notice here is I think I deployed Firefox, but it's not in the player because this is our MSIX container, which actually you can see it right here, but it's also in the start menu too. So I can launch this assigned MSIX application, which is Firefox, and this should be a fully functional browser. So, if I go to numecent.com, it should browse out, the application works, and it should also be that latest version, which is 126. Perfect. And before I move on, maybe the next thing I want to show is here's our Windows 10 desktop. I'm logged in as the same user. So you could see even on my Windows 10 desktop that I may still be using for some things, the applications will still be available over here too. So if I go over to 7-zip now, here I am launching it on my Windows 10 desktop as well. So again, any Windows desktop, it's going to work for that and help you streamline management of applications across all those desktops. The next thing I want to show you is our storefront, which is for that self-service application experience. And I'll just go ahead and I'm going to call this one contractors and just say this is for our contractors in the sake of speeding it up. And maybe I'll go and just assign some of those same applications again, or maybe one different. And I'll assign it to the same group. Okay. And I will publish this. I could put in a change request number and be descriptive, but for the sake of time, I'll just do new storefront published. There we go. And I'll click publish. And this time I'll go back to my Windows 11 desktop, and I will go to Microsoft Edge, and I've just saved a bookmark for the sake of speed. And over here, we can see that storefront I've just gone to. It's already got the applications I've assigned to this user. You can see Firefox shows under browsers. That's because a category was populated for browsers for this application. So anything that's categorized will appear within a category. Anything that's not categorized will appear up top here. So if I launch an application here, or actually, when I'm hovering over, you can see the tile image that we uploaded to Cloudpager appears. And also if you populate a description, it appears there too. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this application. And again, we should see that it does indeed launch the containerized 7-zip. One thing I did talk about during the modernization slide that I do want to discuss is application updates and making those dynamic too, and also making them low risk. So I've got this application here, Inkscape version 0.92.5, I believe. But this is a 32-bit application. You can't tell just from looking at it, but it is. Maybe during the migration, I want to update that application to a 64-bit version of the application. Well, I've already got it deployed, so let's just update that application to the 64-bit version. So I'll go ahead and I'll click Edit on the existing work pod. I'm going to click Add on the applications. I'll add 1.1 by checking that, uncheck 0.92.5, click Save, hit Publish, maybe again put in a change request number, something random, and we'll do Inkscape 1.1 here. And if I click Publish and try to quickly get over to my desktop, we'll see that 0.92.5 is gone, and Inkscape version 1.1 has been delivered. You can already see it in the display name in player and also in the actual shortcut name itself, but we'll launch the application and actually go to the help about so you can see that too. There you are. But let's say that maybe something went wrong with your application update. Again, you're getting really aggressive with your patching of applications. You've deployed an application and maybe something was missed during the user acceptance testing. And suddenly you're getting flooded with calls to the help desk saying that, hey, this application updated. We can no longer use a critical file type, so no one can be productive. The company's losing money. Hair on fire situation. We need the old version back. Well, with a traditional tool, that may be something where you push and uninstall and then push and install and just hope that it works, because in often cases, if something's been marked as permanent in the MSI, it may not work once the old versions roll back to. But let's show you what the process is like when you're using containers. So I'm going to go back to my work pod. I'm going to click Edit. This time, I'm going to go to View Revisions, and we could see where these comments came in pretty handy. So I could say, okay, this is the revision to this work pod. I could see just from looking at it, this one has 0.92.5 in these applications. And visually, if I click on this one, I see the only difference is version 1.1 is in this. So if I want to roll back, I can go click roll back to this revision. It's going to confirm that indeed what we saw is true. Only one application will be affected during this rollback. I'll click rollback. I'm going to go to my Windows 11 desktop here again. And we will see that version 1.1 is gone and 0.92.5 is back. And again, I'll launch the application just for the sake of it, and we'll see that this is indeed 0.92.5, which has effectively made this application update a low-risk method because you're not going to waste hours or days trying to roll back an application using traditional tooling and methods. Now, I also want to show you a little bit on the reporting. So this is something that's obviously going to be a big aspect of your migration planning for this migration and also in the future. So you get very granular historical data through this usage reporting within Cloudpager, but also maybe if I launch Inkscape again and just let that launch, we could see, I launch that application. Maybe I'll refresh the report. You can see the top item there is this Inkscape application, and it's got a start time to the right, but it doesn't have an end time. So it is providing some real-time usage information too, which could be good for ongoing IT support reasons. But obviously in a migration, you're going to be looking more at the historical information. So you might want to see, okay, well, is this application actually being used? Do I need to migrate it forward? You can filter by the application, and you could see exactly how often it's being used. You could also use this for your user acceptance testing as gatekeeping. Maybe you've said, okay, well, we're ready to migrate this application to Windows 11. Uh, you signed off on user acceptance testing, but let's actually look to see, how often you use this application in your testing. Maybe if you only launched it once for 30 seconds, you can push back and go, hey, you need to do better testing of this before we actually deploy this to production. You could also filter by like down to the desktop, down to a specific user or group, set it to a defined period, or even based off of like the work pod. So if you want to look at your HR application usage, your project management or whatever have you, you can look at that filter as well. The very last thing I want to show in today's demonstration is our policies feature that can also be very useful for future migrations too. So let's say maybe I have my Adobe Acrobat DC. At a per application level, you can set these really unique policies. I'm going to set a policy here for offline access, and I'll explain what this is going to do in just a moment. Limited offline access to DC. But essentially, policies, we've got several different options available here. So there's a deployment constraints, which can help you to enforce license controls. So say for an application that maybe for every license, a user can only use it on a maximum of 2 devices. You could say, okay, well, we've got 50 seats for this application, but limited, so users can only launch on a maximum of 2 devices. If a user then tries to exceed that and launch another device, they're going to get a warning about that and told to close out of it on another device before they can use it. And you can also apply it to running concurrent sessions as well. Software reclamation, this is really useful. So this can help you to automate cleanup of applications as well. And again, maybe in the context of our contractors there, maybe you have contractors who have access to a sensitive application just by nature of what they're doing, but you want to revoke it automatically after their contract expires. So you can do that with the software reclamation. You can even say, maybe after 14 days of inactivity, if they're not using the application, automatically remove access to that application as well. So it's that ongoing kind of proactive approach to automating application lifecycle management. And for this one, we can also allow offline usage of applications, possibly for roaming users. So if you have laptop users and you want to say, allow them to use this application, but only allow them to be offline without authenticating for 15 days. So I can actually set this in a policy. And then the beauty is you could also set this uniquely at a work pod level. So maybe you have the same application in various different work pods, but only contractors should be restricted in certain use cases or what have you. So I'm aware we only have a few minutes left. I'm going to speed through this and just say, policy published. Okay, and now if I go back to my Windows 11 desktop, we should see in just a moment that Adobe Acrobat DC has actually changed here. So we can already see a change, but if I go to the information pane, we'll see that our policy was applied and offline access is provided for this application, but they have to re-authenticate after this duration, or else they'll get a warning that they can't use the application until they come back online. But that's it for today's demo. I'm just going to hand things back over to Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Rory. So yeah, really in summary, and I know we've actually had a bunch of questions come through in the chat, which we'll get to in just a moment. Yeah, really everything we're on about today is about, again, not just simplifying this move to Windows 11, but any future OS, VDI, or DaaS migration. So the crux of this being, containerizing all those apps as you just saw and being able to extend those DevOps capabilities to Windows desktops, these technologies that infrastructure teams have been able to leverage for the better part of a decade, if not more, and bringing that to your Windows desktop applications. Of course, as Rory alluded to many times, giving you that proactive application lifecycle management. We have customers vendors, that have been able to reduce overhead, upwards of 90% by automating virtually all the actions you saw in this demonstration, including the application packaging process, and ultimately by containerizing everything, giving you that easy button. Again, as you saw with this demo, just as long as the necessary clients in our Cloudpaging player are there, you can dynamically provision those apps on down, which makes those migrations seamless. So really, I guess as we wrap up here, and then we'll move into the questions, I want to just note that post-webinar, if you'd like to speak to an expert, we would love to connect with you. So whether you're already on your way to Windows 11 or evaluating other platforms. We covered kind of the key capabilities in the demonstration today, but we'd be happy to give you a deeper dive of the platform. And then if as far as reviewing and sharing this webinar, so I guess if we want to jump ahead on here, we'll cover what folks are going to be able to do. So we're going to give you the recording, of course, on demand here. So if anyone does need to drop, we will get to the questions here in just a moment. This will be available on demand to you. We're also going to get you that free Windows 11 migration guide, which was released relatively recently. So I guess diving into the questions, we've got a lot here in the chat. So I guess
Yeah.
we'll start going through those. So I guess
would you mind
oh,
if I answer some of them, just because
yeah, that's what I was going to
while
say.
you were
Let's
talking, I was
yeah,
actually looking at some. So yeah, I can grab
absolutely.
some of these questions here. So Robin had asked about the context menus within some of the applications, which yes, those context menus should work. Hopefully, I'm still sharing my screen here. I don't know if I have an actual file to test this with, but yes, context menus of applications do work. And he also asked about file type associations. Yes, file type associations will also work in our application container format. Let's see. Is it possible to virtualize auto-updating applications like Microsoft Teams and WebEx? Well, yes, I would say personally, I think the best approach is to automating the application updates for those applications. So we can provide some links or information to show what you can achieve with automation using the containers. But yeah, like if it's a web frame application and the vendor actually doesn't require a client update, but they change something in the UI, that's obviously going to still be reflected in a container. But if you do need to change the client, that is also something that could be automated with our non-interactive packager. Is it possible to set up a share on-prem so the clients can download the software from that share instead of the cloud? Yes, we do have that ability. So there is a client setting where you can point to a specific share. So maybe on a per machine basis, maybe you have these desktops hosted in the cloud and you want to use NetApp files and have the applications on a share there. You can do that selectively for those desktops. You could also benefit from the fact that if something happens connectivity-wise to that share, it could still fail over and use what's in the actual Cloudpager tenant as well. Okay, let's see, I'll pick maybe one more. See, AppV optimizing, does that do anything to the performance on the endpoints? And in general, what's the experience regarding performance for the end user? So what I actually showed was, yeah, that optimization process, which actually should improve the performance for some of the applications. Applications, because they're being delivered with our container, you don't require things like AppV connection groups anymore. If you're having Office installed locally and using AppV with maybe the run virtual, you won't require that anymore because the way our disposition layers work, you could just deploy those applications as containers that have plugins for Office, and the plugins will appear. I'm aware that we're out of time, so I don't think we'll take any more questions, but I'm happy to reach out to anyone who may have further questions as well. And yeah, Duncan, I'll maybe turn it back over to you.
Sure thing. Yeah, thanks so much, Rory. Yeah, as noted, we are going to follow up with a recording of this webinar. If you do have additional questions that we didn't get to, I see that there were a few more. Feel free to send us a contact request or respond to the email follow-up that's going to have all the additional items. So we'll have that shortly once the webinar is ready to go. We genuinely appreciate the time, and thank you so much for the opportunity to connect this morning, and look forward to connecting with you all again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.